Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. It is that time again, time for me to do a Friday Reads video on a Saturday. If you follow along, my Greg logic is that I film it on Friday and post it on Saturday, and that's what it is. I'm happy today because it's cold outside, but I'm wearing a cardigan. I feel like cardigans are my best life. I don't wear one very often anymore because I've whittled my collection down to one. They've all kind of worn out except for this one. So it is even more precious to me. But anyway, it's been a kind of low-key week, which is actually nice. And, the news continues to stress me out, but certainly not as much as it had been earlier. Although the pandemic is stressing me out. So I hope wherever you are staying safe, continuing to be responsible, and helping take care of each other by being safe. So that's all I'm going to say about that. It was a low-key week. The biggest excitement we had here is that, so we had done all of our Christmas decorating, and we have an indoor tree, obviously. We usually do a tree downstairs as well, where the TV is, but we didn't do that this year. But we also have, for the past 2 or 3 years, done an outdoor tree, which we put some lights on. And the other, at some point this week, I can't remember, I think maybe it was Wednesday, I was getting to work, and because of the sun situation, which you've seen, it's cloudy today, but you've seen it reflecting. It's just the time of year the sun comes really aggressively through the front windows. So I was going to pull down the blinds and saw the person who lives across the street carrying a Christmas tree across the yard and dumping it on the curb. And I thought to myself, this is weird. Why would he be throwing his Christmas tree out now? And it was only... And so I texted my husband about this. I was like, I don't understand. What is he doing? And I sent him a picture of the tree on the curb. I was chatting with some people on Voxer about it. And then when I went out to get the mail at lunchtime, I realized our outdoor tree was gone. The tree he had dumped on the curb was our tree. So the best we can tell is an animal, probably a deer, somehow got into the tree and dragged it off. It wouldn't be unprecedented because about 2 years ago we made the mistake of putting cranberry and popcorn garlands on the outdoor tree, and the deer went nuts, and one of them, while I was sitting here and could see it happen, got tangled in the lights and kind of dragged the tree a couple of feet before it managed to get free. So I guess it's possible, but it's bizarre. It was just really bizarre. But mostly once I realized it was our tree, I had to then go back to my husband and say, actually, just kidding, that's our tree. So that was that mystery was the big excitement of the week. Not a really big deal. And I guess that's probably the good news. If that's the biggest thing that happened this week, I'm doing okay. And we are in full holiday mode. We've kind of been in holiday mode for a while because it makes us happy and it alleviates some of the stress of the world. And we need a lot of that right now. So, you know what, speaking of being ready for Christmas, I am going to move that right there because it'll spark a little joy for me. But the next phase of our holiday excitement is that this weekend we are getting ready to do Christmas cookies. Love this. It's something we do every year. We usually do a really elaborate sugar cookie decoration. We do eggnog sugar cookies, by the way. That's kind of how we roll. They're amazing. Anyway, we really usually do really elaborate decoration on the sugar cookies. This year, we're thinking that we're going to do it. But the thing is, because we also do a couple of other types of cookie, and then we put them into boxes so we can gift them to some close friends here in town. It always ends up being a lot. So, and I get really obsessive about the decorating on the cookies. So this year, I think I'm going to let go a little bit and try to we're not going to do elaborate cookies. My husband always jokes that he needs to get me tweezers because I always place the sprinkles very precisely. And he's joking, but I would actually like a pair of tweezers to place all of my sprinkles because it would make me happy. It would spark joy for me. But that's our plan. And this year we're just going to do simple designs and sprinkles and things like that, and not be a little so elaborate. But that'll be fun, and that's our plan. We have a couple of different types. We had been doing the same type of cookie for a couple of years. This year we're going to try to mix it up and do different kinds, which is another reason to simplify the eggnog sugar cookies a little bit. And anyway, I'm really excited about that. Hope your holidays are going well. If you celebrate the holidays, if you don't, that's fine. I hope you're staying safe and enjoying life. The other thing is, so we actually did get to, I had not left Missoula all year long. And at last weekend I did. We drove to Helena, which is an hour and a half away from us. And my father-in-law's birthday is December 23rd. So his birthday usually gets lumped into Christmas. And we try to do something separate for his birthday. So we just kind of drove by, dropped off a present, waved. And because it was actually a nice day, we were able to have lunch with my in-laws and sit in the backyard and be distant, and it was nice. And then we shopped downtown in Helena. My favorite, so my two favorite bookstores are Northshire Bookstore in Manchester, Vermont, and Montana Book Company in Helena. They have really stepped up and become one of my favorite stores, and I got to go there and I loved it. And we bought some Christmas presents there, and it was really nice to see that there were a lot of people downtown shopping local, and I saw a lot of people shopping local downtown in Missoula as well. That makes me happy because, this has been a tough year for all around, but it has particularly been a tough year for small business and for local businesses. And it warms my heart to see people supporting these businesses. We also went to Shakespeare and Company, which is my favorite bookstore here in Missoula, and made a purchase there for my nieces. I got 2 picture books for one of my nieces, and we are going to be shipping those. And it was nice to see people supporting them as well. So I encourage you. It's so easy to shop online. It can seem cheaper and all that, but it's really important to try to keep money in your community and support these stores that do so much for your community and for your town and provide such a great service. So that's my little soapbox speech for this. Now, before we get into the Friday reads, I do want to mention, so I had been asking for channel recommendations not that long ago. I'm still working my way through the list because I still have not really gotten back into the habit of watching BookTube yet. And that's something I'm hoping to get really back into over the next week. I did dip my toe in this week and it was nice. So when I did the DNF tag, I mentioned that the original creators of it were Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. And I've been exploring their channel a little bit, and I am going to link their channel down below. I recommend checking them out. They are a smaller, relatively new, I believe, BookTube channel, and they had a video about Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and some of the controversy around her. Now, you may notice I used to talk about Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie a lot because I really love her book, Americana. And I've been silent on her for a while because I did not know this until someone pointed it out to me, but she had a bit of a controversy of her own back in 2017 when she said basically this very similar opinion to J.K. Rowling about trans people. And it ignited again in November because she basically came out and said that J.K. Rowling's press release from the summer was perfectly reasonable, and it hurts. And if you follow the channel, I decided to remove the Harry Potter books from my shelf and have not talked about them in videos since, except for just now. And maybe a little bit to talk about some of the backlash that happened to my channel because of that video, which continues, by the way. And because of that and the stress that goes with it, and because there's already so much stress in the world, I haven't wanted to talk about Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and I'm not going to now. Not really, except that I think they have a reasoned discussion about why it's a problem and why it is problematic and why it might make sense to explore, at least have a discussion about Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and her thoughts on the issue and whether or not she's an author you really want to lift up. And the thing that hurts me is that she also won, I think it was the Women's Prize, did like a best of the best, and Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie won it for half of a Yellow Sun. So she's really been in the media a lot lately, and I haven't wanted to talk about it because I feel like I just don't want to give space to that kind of belief in my life. And one of the things that bothers me a lot is that somebody at some point really pushed back at me about J.K. Rowling, because part of the idea is that to people like J.K. Rowling and Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, a trans woman is not a woman. And someone really pushed back at me and said, as a white man, I should not be telling women who they should accept and who they should not accept. Which I see what they're saying, but at the same time, it's not just trans women. I think trans men are men, and I don't think accepting a trans man as a man makes me any less of a man. I don't think it weakens the definition of masculinity or manhood. I think the definition of masculinity that we have upheld for such a long time probably needs to be challenged. So I have no problem accepting a trans man as a man. And it's, to me, the same thing. So anyway, I don't want to get into a whole thing because, to be honest, I turned the comment section on my J.K. Rowling video off because it was getting insane. For a while after I turned the comment section off, people were really leaving nasty, hateful comments on other videos. That seems to have died down. I do notice I've been getting a lot of dislikes on all of my videos, like even instantly after they go up, and that's only been since I turned it was only been since the J.K. Rowling video went up, but really since I turned the comment section off, because I think now people seem to think that that's the only way they can express displeasure. I don't know, and it's fine, but I think for a large part of the conversation, I said what I wanted to say. I don't think I said it perfectly, but I said what I wanted to say, and it's there. And, I am not sorry I said it. I'm not sorry I took the Harry Potter books off of my bookshelf, and I'm not sorry I don't talk about them. And as someone who really liked Americana as a book, it does hurt me to not talk about Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie anymore. But it's a decision that you have to follow your conscience. And I think in this time of division, we need to stand for togetherness and unity and inclusion. And the diversity is good. Diversity is fine. We can have diversity among masculine culture. We can have diversity among the different types of women. We already do. And that's one of the reasons I really enjoyed the video that Gunpowder Fiction and Plot did, because they talk about, Nell mentions that she's like, I'm a short woman. Do I have to define that I'm a short woman and not just a woman every time I talk about it? And I thought that was really interesting. So anyway, I don't want to, I said I didn't want to ruffle feathers, and now I've been talking about it a lot. So I'm just going to leave it there. And now, if you've wondered why I haven't really been talking about the Women's Prize update and Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, that is why. And I'm going to let their video, I've already talked too much to really let their videos speak for me, but I will link it down below, and I encourage you to check it out and get to know their channel, because I've been enjoying, I've only really watched 2 of their videos so far, but I've enjoyed the 2 that I watched. So please check them out and support them. Don't... If you're one of the people who was angry about J.K. Rowling and is watching this, first of all, I guess thank you for the view. But second, please don't go spread hate on their channel. That is not what I'm trying to do. I would not like to see that. So anyway, let's get into the actual Friday Reads portion of this video and talk about my life in reading for the past week. Last week I was super excited because I managed to finish 2 books, and I had gotten back on the reading train. For the most part, this week followed suit. I managed to make a lot of progress, and then I kind of hit a roadblock on Wednesday with work, just because a lot was going on with work, and then yesterday I didn't have a whole lot of time either. But I made a lot of progress. Well, not a lot of progress. I made progress in Love by Toni Morrison. I think I read 2 chapters since last week, and there are only, I think, 40 or 50 pages left. We're going to try to, this is a buddy read I'm doing with Brit Bowler, and we're going to try to finish it this weekend by Sunday. So that's what we're aiming for. Should be doable. And so the 2 chapters that I read this week kind of introduced a ghost subplot, and I am not enthused by that, I guess you could say. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all ties together, but that really kind of set me back a little bit, and I don't like the direction that storyline took. And I'm starting to feel a little bit like, I think if you took out a lot of the elements of this book and really pared it down to the 3 central women, it'd be a better book. But I'm going to wait and see how it ends before I really make up my mind. But if it were just about Junior, Christine, and Heed, I think it would be a better book. So if you're unfamiliar with Love by Toni Morrison, it's the story of women who were kind of caught up in the life of Bill Cozy. He was a black man who owned a hotel and did a lot for his community. And he is gone. And the women in his life, which are now reduced to, I think, Vida, who's kind of on a subplot, and Christine and Heed. Christine is his daughter. Heed was his wife. And over the course of the book, you find out that Christine and Heed are actually the same age. they had been good friends. And when they were 11, yes, 11, and he was in his 50s, he married Heed, and that kind of fractured their friendship. So it's about them fighting over his legacy and also hating each other. And I think the story between Christine and Heed is interesting. I think if you had Junior, who is a woman who comes and works for Heed, and she is kind of a go-between in the feud between Christine and Heed, I think she could be interesting. But there are so many other bits and things going on that it feels like there isn't much of a narrative focus to this book. So I think if you took out the extra bits and just focused on those three women and the interplay between them, because my favorite parts of this book are when people will assume that they have the upper hand in a situation and they're really manipulating things, and then the perspective will shift and you'll realize that the other people know exactly what they're doing, but they think they're in control of the situation. And I find that really interesting. So if that was the book, I would love it. But I'm definitely going to see how this goes and how it ends. I'm trying to keep an open mind, but that ghost story really threw me for a loop. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we're in the home stretch, and I should be done with this by the time we speak again in a Friday Reads next week. The other book I've made a lot of progress on is the audiobook that I mentioned last week, Overground Railroad by Candacy Taylor. Now, I continue to really enjoy this book. I went on at length about how interesting I think I was about a quarter, maybe, or a third. I can't remember. I had trouble with the math, and now I don't remember how it worked out. But I was a chunk of the way into it. Now I only have an hour and a half left of a 9-hour audiobook. And it's been so interesting. And I feel like I have learned a lot from this book. I will say at times it seems a little bit too densely packed with information. It can feel like there's just a lot of information flying at you, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. But I really enjoy the book, and I love the perspective that it has and the way it challenges your preconceptions of history in certain ways. For instance, one of the sections that I just finished or just got through is about Route 66 and how, white America has all of this nostalgia for Route 66 and what it captures about a time and place in America where air travel hadn't really taken off yet. But people had money and the leisure time to explore the country. And in order to do that, they took their cars and explored and drove around, and Route 66 was the most famous way to do that. But what Overground Railroad exposes was that if you were a Black American who had a little bit of money and leisure time and wanted to drive around and explore or go on vacation, Route 66 was largely closed to you because a lot of the towns that it went through were either segregated or sundown towns. And the book spends a lot of time talking about sundown towns, and it's really upsetting to read about and to realize how late into the 20th century things like this went on. So a lot of the towns along Route 66, if you were Black, you were allowed to go into these towns for work as, say, a maid or a nanny or something like that. But you had to be out of the town by the time the sun went down. And there were not businesses that would cater to you or serve you. You couldn't find restaurants to eat at, hotels to stay at, gas stations that would service you. And basically the Green Book had to come up with an almost alternate Route 66 for anyone who wanted to travel the country. It talks about how national parks, white people have been crazy about national parks and visiting them for a long time. And they were largely closed to the Black population of the United States. And it's so interesting and sad in a way. And what I really like about the book is how at every turn, Candacy Taylor really ties it to the modern day and lets you know that it's like, this is not something that it purely exists in the past. It is something that is still going on. And we still see the effects of these things. For instance, in the portion about Route 66, she mentions Ferguson and how Ferguson was a sundown town and how the fact that it was a sundown town created a lot of the racial tensions that clearly still exist to this day, because Ferguson is the site of terrible racial conflict and led to a lot of the current Black Lives Matter movement. And you can see the roots of it in the Green Book and in the segregation and the sundown town, all of these topics, and how lasting their impact has been. And to me, it's an important book, and it goes on from that Route 66 section to talk about Black female business owners and their role in the community. And it talks the part that where I am right now, it has been talking about colorism and how even within the Black community and within the Green Book, that really had an impact on Black culture. And how one of the interesting things is that it talks about how one of the 1960 editions of the Green Book was the first one to have an afro. And not only did it have an afro, it was the first edition to have a recognizably Black person on the cover, because previous editions had very light-skinned people on the cover who had, stereotypically Anglo-Saxon features. So you could almost believe that they were white or kind of white adjacent. And how radical a shift that was, even for the Green Book at the time. It's a fascinating book. If you have not heard, had not heard of it until the New York Times released its 100 notable books of the year, and I discovered it on that list, and I'm really enjoying it. So I would definitely recommend checking it out. I am listening to it on Scribd right now. At some point, I do want to find a physical copy of the book. I don't think it's in paperback yet. It's only in hardcover, but from what I've seen, it has beautiful photographs and details that I really feel like I'm missing because I'm listening to the audiobook. However, I am really enjoying the audiobook. I will say, I mentioned last week that the narrator of the audiobook really hits a lot of the pronunciation hard, and sometimes that is still a bit of I don't want to say it's a problem. It's fine. But it feels a little bit, I don't know, it's interesting. But otherwise, I'm really, really loving the book a lot. And I think it's easily going to be one of my favorites of the year, and we'll see where it fits on the list when I finish it. So I'm currently reading 2 books. I'm down to only 2 books, and I'm loving it. 1 physical book, 1 audio. I love it. I really want to try to continue that in 2021, not try to overwhelm myself by having multiple books going at the same time, and again, more than something I'm listening to and something I can have in my hands. So I'm going to be working on that for 2021. And I should be done with both of them by the time we have another Friday Reads next week. So stay tuned for that. Coming up, I really want to, once I'm done with Love by Toni Morrison, I'm picking Burnt Sugar up by Avni Doshi. This is going to be my next physical book, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to this. If you follow along, I had been, I'm halfway through it already. I had been reading a lot of books at the same time, and when I hit election stress, I had to put one down. And I put down Burnt Sugar, and I really want to get back to it because I was loving it. It's a really great book. It is about a toxic relationship between a mother and a daughter. The mother is experiencing memory problems, and it is also very much about memory and how frail memory can be. And I'm really looking forward to getting back to it and finishing it before the end of the year. And then I have my next audiobook planned. So even though I have a physical copy of the book, I've mentioned I started listening to The Vanishing Half on audio. This is by Brit, Bennett. And because I started it on audio, I feel like I need to finish it on audio, even though I have the physical book. So I had a hold on it on the Libby app, and just yesterday, my copy became available. So I'm going to get back to this. I need to get through that last hour and a half of Overground Railroad, and then I'll be picking this back up. I think I'm going to go back to the beginning and start over completely. I was about halfway through when I ran out of time over the summer. So I'm probably going to be starting over, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to this. And that is everything I'm currently reading, everything I'm looking forward to. I'd love to hear what you are currently reading, if you finished anything, what you're looking forward to, if you're trying to cram anything in by the end of the year. Let me know. The comment section is down there. And as always, I really appreciate your time. As always, I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.